Today we are at the Southern Pines train station and Welcome Center, and we're going to be talking a little bit about both of those. First of all, the first thing that really came to this area was the rail line. That came through in 1877, and it came through originally to be a good transport for all the naval stores that they were harvesting out of this area. They were pulling lumber. It's mostly pines here, so we're pulling a lot of lumber out of the area, as well as harvesting tar, pitch, turpentine, really trying to recreate the naval stores after the Civil War. So the rail line was a must at that point. So it came through in 1877, and then in 1884, the new Commissioner of Immigration, Mr. John Tyrant Patrick, came through the area and decided to begin a town here and a few more along the rail line, Aberdeen and Pine Bluff, to really make actually this one particularly as a health resort. They were trying to combat that tuberculosis epidemic that was really ravaging the northern cities. So people were trying to get out of those, get down here, get some fresh air, try to combat that epidemic. So he established this town in 1884. They originally named it Vineland, and then not too long after, the post office sort of made them change that. There was already a town by that name in New Jersey. So they changed it to Southern Pines, which was very fitting. And really before that, it was a lot of Highland Scots who had settled and had their small farms in the 18th and 19th centuries. So yeah, there really wasn't much here. So bringing a town to the area was definitely a must. So this train station is actually the third iteration that they had. This one was built in 1898. The ones before were really little more than sheds, just some place to load all of the naval stores. So in 1898, they built this beautiful building, which is still in existence, as you can see. It has undergone a few renovations. First in 1948, really, had that big economic boom after World War II, and we were starting to get into a bit of a car culture. Everybody had their own personal or home vehicle, and so the rail line was trying to combat that, and they were trying to really bring people back to the rail line. Can't say it was very successful, but they attempted it certainly. And then in 2004 here in town, we did another big renovation, brought it back to its 1940s version basically. Now this room that we are in currently was originally two different rooms. It was sort of the freight area as well as a baggage area for luggage and mail and such. And that got expanded, obviously. Two rooms became one, and it now houses the Southern Pines Welcome Center. Now, here in the Welcome Center, there is so much to look at. It's basically turned into a small museum, has a lot of volunteers here on a regular basis to show people around, give them local information. So feel free to come in and browse. I'll show you a little bit of what we have here today. There's some wonderful, wonderful things on display here. So in the corner here on the TV, we've got a wonderful slideshow showing pictures and text from a book by the name of Young Southern Pines, which was written by a woman who grew up here around the turn of the century and retired here, and to write this book later on to show how much the town had changed. Below that, you can see the wonderful Sandsquare project, which has memorabilia and photos from locals here in the town. Over here we have, well, first off, way up high, the 110-year-old flag, and below that we have original map of the town. You can see that Vineland for the name there. Next to that, we have this recent acquisition, actually. This was a World War I veteran whose daughters presented this to us. He had come through the area on his troop train in 1917 on their way to Camp McClellan down in Alabama. And they'd stopped here for resupply, as they did quite often at a lot of little stations. And he received such an amazing response from the town. The whole town apparently came out to greet the train and bring them snacks and what have you. And so he wrote back to his mother to tell her how much he had enjoyed this little visit to this town. Even though they were only here for 45 minutes, it really made an impact on him. So it's a great display of Southern hospitality there. Over in this corner, we have a beautiful painting by a local artist up in Greensboro, Mr. William Mangum. And we also have that recreated into puzzles for sale there. And then you also have these beautiful birdhouses, which you can see all over the place here. They are all made by a local gentleman named Jerry Stanback, whose grandfather was a porter here at the station back in the 40s and 50s. Up on the wall there and across the room on the other side are a couple of the original siding signs from the 1940s version. And then just above this one over here, you have an original gable window from the outside of the building back when it was originally built in 1898. I think those were taken out in the 1940s renovation. Just below that, we have this beautiful Chickering piano. This is from 1895. Chickering & Sons were the largest and oldest piano manufacturers here in America. And they had, oh man, beautiful pianos that went all over the place, including to the White House. And this was a very moderately priced one, would have been typical of what a Pioneer would have brought to the area on the train. Coming outside here, we have this beautiful exterior where you can see this raised platform and butterfly shed that run the entire length of the block. Now these were put in the 1948 renovation. The butterfly shed is so named because of its shape, sort of a V shape there. It was actually only the third one installed here in North Carolina. First being in Raleigh and another down in Hamlet, which is one of the really big stations in the area. Now, as you can see, there's only a single track here on the line. This was not typical at the turn of the century. Actually, back then, there were multiple tracks that came through town, used quite regularly, really. Now this one, it's down just to the single at this point, mostly because the others became a bit of a danger for anyone crossing all of these crossings across the tracks throughout town. There are multiples throughout town. So when there was more than one train here, it became a bit of an issue. You thought you could get past one and another one might get you. So they did eventually dismantle those. Now you look down this and it doesn't look like much of a difficult bit of track. Looks pretty straight, but you'd be surprised to know that this is the longest, steepest bit of track on the entire line between New York and Miami, to the point where when they were using steam engines, a train coming north here to this station from the Aberdeen station, which is the next one down at the south, would have maybe not been able to make it all the way up here, especially if they were really heavily laden. So they would have to call down to the Aberdeen station to send up an extra engine to push them the remainder of the way to this station and be able to make it. To the point where even nowadays when you see a freight train come through that is obviously very heavy, it starts picking up speed after it passes this station. Here we've got a nice exterior view from the platform, and you can see from left to right Over on the side here, this is the waiting room currently for Amtrak, and then here would have been, well, still is, the station master's office and ticket windows. And then over here you have what is now a town meeting area, community room basically. And then on the end over here you've got what is now the Welcome Center. Now I'll give you a quick overlay of the original plan and elevation of this building when they were starting the 1948 renovation. You can see on the left what is now the waiting room was then the colored waiting room, with still the station masters and ticket office in the middle, and then on the other side what is now our community room was the white waiting room. Of course they were segregated at the time. Here we have the old station master's office. Tried to recreate this as best they could to what it would have looked like back in the day when he was here in residence. You can see over here you have the ticket windows for the white waiting room on one side with 2 windows, and for the colored waiting room on the other side with 1 ticket window. And in the front window of the station master's office is this beautiful diorama of the train station, downtown, a little bit of the downtown area around the railroad tracks, and a train at the station. This was built in 1976 by Mr. James Buxton, and it's really well put together. Nice little display here in the window. Here you have what was the white waiting room with a ticket window on the left there. But as you can see, this is a wonderful little community room that they use now. Back in the day, it would have had a lot of benches in here for waiting passengers. And we do have a train coming. That was a short one. Short little train. Now, quite a few notable people have come through this station over the years, of course, being here as long as it has. Actually, FDR spoke from this train platform during his 1932 campaign. J.D. Rockefeller came here to visit a childhood friend at one point. Annie Oakley and her husband actually lived in the area, spent a good bit of their retirement years here, and she trained women to shoot out at the local gun club. So we've had quite a few people come through and enjoy our beautiful train station here. Now this is still a working passenger station. It is not manned, but Amtrak does still pick up people here twice daily, morning and night, north and south directions. So you can take a trip up to Raleigh for the day and get back in time for bed. It makes for an easy day trip. Or you can go, points beyond. That's very simple. Like I said, it goes all the way up to New York, all the way down to Miami. So makes for an easy escape. Well, that's it for us here today. I hope you all enjoyed, and as always, get out and explore your world.